So this session is looking at the seamless journey, the final word in customer experience. We have pioneers in the travel vertical who are forging new partnerships and new ways to sell the travel experience and the transport experience. And what I see all the time is there's lots of conferences out there for hotels, lots of conferences out there just for airlines, but the customer doesn't see that. They see the whole travel experience. So partnering, working out how to work out how to work with each other, that's at the key to every successful business. So I'd like the panel to introduce themselves, tell us what you do within your organization, and I think everyone knows what your organization does, but maybe just explain that as well. So let's start with you, Payam.
Sounds good. Hello, everybody. Nice to meet you all. So I'm Payam, founder and CEO of Bellhop. We are effectively like a kayak for transportation, food, and entertainment. So we partner with all the best apps across those three verticals and transact through their APIs, bring them all together into one app basically and make that available to the consumer. So to give you an example, we're partnered with Lyft and looking to partner with some other ride transportation companies and give a traveler access to that ability to book a Lyft ride within our app. Another example within restaurant reservations would be OpenTable or Resy, or within food delivery, Seamless, Grubhub, Postmates, DoorDash. So giving that supply to the consumer in one seamless experience.
Hey guys, my name is David Litwack. I'm the CEO of Mozio. So Mozio aggregates about 3,000 different ground transportation partners, so shuttles, taxis, limos, express trains, buses, and even public transit. For example, in Philadelphia, we are the only way you can book the public transit ticket to and from the airport. We have a partnership with Lyft, with Super Shuttle, with Heathrow Express in London. And we mainly partner with big companies like Booking.com, eDreams Autogeo, JetBlue, Carlson Wagonlit, American Express to run all of their ground transportation. So if you guys have ever booked a flight or a hotel and then you get nagged about a car rental and insurance and ground transportation, we're the guys who are doing the nagging for ground transportation, basically.
Hi, everyone. I'm Amy Fox, lead the strategic partnerships team at Lyft. So unlike Bellhop and Mozio, we are more focused on the B2C space. So we provide real-time ride sharing for users across the US. And so essentially it's one simple app. You open it, it'll auto-locate your location. You click request a Lyft and you'll have a ride that shows up in minutes. So if you're familiar with the broader rideshare space, some of our competitors include Uber, Cabify, and a few others. So you're probably all relatively familiar. But I think that the way we look at it, and leading strategic partnerships, we have two great partners here, but they really span a variety of different verticals and strategies across the board. So it's everything from thinking through what the right brand partners and brand strategy is to amplify who we are and how we're bringing people together. So whether it's through a Starbucks or a Budweiser, we'll consider those options. Then we have some that are very heavily focused around the travel space and how do we organically include Lyft as a viable option to keep users in one main place as they're going throughout the travel experience and travel ribbon to make it as seamless and as beautiful an experience as possible.
Okay. So my first question, of course, when you want to ask questions, use Slido, put your hands up. We want to get you guys involved. My first question is, what are you looking for from a travel partner? And what I want here is, from a technology level, what are you looking for technology? What the company must have, but also their position in the market. When you meet someone from the travel business, what type of company makes you go, right, I want to partner with you? Who wants to take that one?
Well, so for us, our supply side is traditionally not necessarily focused on travel. So the travel journey has typically been siloed across food, entertainment, transport for consumers that are familiar with what those options are when they live in a particular city, not necessarily what they're accustomed to engaging with when they're traveling. So if you take, food delivery, right? You might know what the best options are in, your home city or for restaurant reservations, but then when you're in Paris, you don't know that La Fourchette is the best restaurant reservation provider. In Singapore, it's Chope. So what we're doing is saying there's all these siloed apps within these verticals that travelers aren't used to using or not familiar with and they're unaware of. And we're saying we can bring all of that into a single platform and make that journey more seamless. So what we're looking for specifically is to partner with them, get their APIs, and make that truly a seamless experience for the traveler.
So essentially, it's a silo of inventory, which you want.
We're taking the 3 silos and putting
Yeah.
them into one. Yeah.
Okay. And do they mind?
Do we make money?
No. Do they mind?
Oh.
Does Fourchette mind taking this? Or?
Yes and no. It's with some partners it's easier to work with them. With some it takes some time and a little bit of a business development effort. But on a whole, I'd say no. It's just time.
Yeah. So you made the agreement and the integration of the whole thing.
And then it's an integration. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And David, what about yourself? When you went through your list of partners, you were going fast. So I didn't write it down enough. But one airline and lots of OTAs.
Yeah. Well, so we partner on both sides, 3,000 transportation partners, and then maybe 100 different distribution partners. So I'd say what we look for on the transportation side is that we're not going to basically be doing their QA for them. Like we kind of joke, we're Mozio, the outsourced QA department for many of these different guys who don't have their APIs kind of up to snuff. And this has been the case where everyone has 90% of the way there. So really making sure that they're technologically proficient. On the distribution side, making sure they're worth our time to engage with. We've definitely, when we first started out, we had a lot of instances where we did custom white labels for partners who ended up referring 1 reservation a day, if that.
So what sort of size do you need to make it work?
It's dependent on the type of partner. For example, really good partners are hotel booking engines that take the reservation because people search for ground transportation or actually considering booking ground transportation 1 to 4 days before they leave. People who book flights are often booking things 6 to 8 weeks in advance. They're not looking to book their ground transportation. So the worst possible partner, for example, are Flight Metasearch. Flight Metasearch, they don't take the reservation, which means they have a couple touch points they can sell us at. They don't have access to the confirmation page or the actual booking info. They don't have any of the ways to follow up closer to the time. So some of our least successful partnerships have been in kind of Flight Metasearch and the most successful in hotel OTAs. So it depends, but we have one of the biggest hotel OTAs, Booking.com, as our partner, and we've got other Flight Metasearch as well, and so it spans the gamut. But we skew heavily towards hotels.
Yeah, but not the hotel. The booking end of the hotel. So the OTA.
The booking of the hotels, but also we have Accor is one of our partners as well. So not only the OTAs.
Yeah. Okay, Amy.
Yeah, for Lyft, it's really 2 simple things. One of which is the technological proficiency of these partners. I think very similar to David's point, it becomes a lot easier and much more scalable if we can leverage each other's APIs and there's up-to-date technology that we can really tap into to make sure that at launch and then everything beyond that, it's very easy to properly test. We can ensure a very seamless experience for the end traveler and user. And it does sufficiently scale market over market. So that's the first thing. The second thing is really around this idea of experience and innovation. And so I would say our brand is really speaks to the end users. And we're always trying to innovate. What's going to create the best user experience possible? How do we properly surprise and delight these individuals that are taking Lyft rides, whether it's through the right seamless experience and technology, whether it's the in-car experience. And so when we think about partnerships, we are always looking for companies that are also kind of pressing the envelope, being able and willing to kind of step up and innovate together, thinking about solutions and kind of turning the standard business on its head and iterate on that.
Okay. We've got a few questions coming in from the Slido. Let's have a quick look. I should have done this. Can you elaborate on your business models? Just very quickly. Commissions,
Yeah, so commissions through partnerships will take on average 10% of a gross transaction.
Commissions too, and we sometimes charge for more custom work like white labels.
Yeah.
Ours in the B2C space is we take 20% off of every Lyft ride, and then the 80% goes to the Lyft driver itself, and then they also take 100% of the tip.
Okay. And we have a question which might have been inspired by Uber's recent difficulties. Amy, your brand has been applauded for its company culture. What's important to you about scaling operations for your team versus technology?
Sorry, I didn't get the tail of that.
Well, the team versus technology. So you've yeah.
Us versus technology. So to make sure I'm hearing it correctly, how do we scale our brand?
I'll say it again. What's important to you about scaling your operation through a team versus technology? So I think it's looking at how important the team is, how important the technology is, and which do you really value as an organization?
I don't think we have enough time for this. It's a great question, whoever posed that. I think that when we first started as a business, our president and CEO would actually sit down with every single Lyft driver that came in wanting to drive on Lyft's platform. And I think that was a really good foundation in that it allows us to continue helping bring people in that really embody the culture and the brand and who we stand for and what kind of experience we want to provide in car. Obviously, with technology, and as we grow very quickly, we actually launched 36 or 40 markets within a span of a week in Q1, and it was completely insane. And that obviously does not allow for us to properly scale in the way we used to, which was a much more personal touch, where we were actually meeting with every single one of these drivers. And so through this, we've come up with a variety of different programs, some of which have worked better than others, and we continue to innovate and iterate on our own. But we've come up with other concepts such as the mentorship program. So as we continue to scale and we really leverage technology to more quickly onboard a lot of these drivers, we're able to leverage the power of the community in each of these new markets. So what we call power drivers, these drivers have top ratings, they're out there, they embody Lyft, they're taking probably more trips than most everyone else. And we'll empower them to turn around and be a mentor for all of these new drivers coming in. So essentially, we're extending our brand, we're expanding the personal touch to these individuals, while we're also leveraging technology to properly scale it in real time so that we can properly compete market to market.
Okay.
Did that address it?
I think that answers that question. Payam, I have a question for you. So you have 3 distinct products. Yeah. Do you have any data about your services, about which one's the most successful, which one can you cross-sell, which one really works for you guys?
Yeah, I mean, it's out of the 3, it's definitely food and transport. We're to date been focused on getting a traveler through hotel and let's call them Airbnb partners. So an Airbnb hosts and limited service hotels don't have infrastructure to provide concierge services to their guests. Yeah. And this is actually maybe a next question, but what we've done is we've unbundled effectively a typical 5-star hotel. The concierge desk and the restaurant at a hotel is offering all these services, and we've said we can actually bring that all into one place through technology and opening up APIs through partnerships. So to answer the question, it's really around transportation. When somebody's in destination, they've already, potentially used Mozio to get from the airport to that hotel, and then once they're there, they need to move around and they need to discover, where to eat. And we're still an early stage startup, so we're still kind of figuring out, what's gonna work the best in that distribution model. But it's really around food and ground transportation, specifically on-demand transportation while they're in destination.
Yeah. And you mentioned the pushback. How's that come about?
So with like concierges today, in today's world, they're still getting their commissions and fees from the individual restaurants or the individual tour operators. So for us, it's saying, okay, you can still make a commission by partnering with us, but instead of getting the few bucks that you're getting every time you help that person book a transportation, you can get something similar by, having your guests use the Bellhop app. So there's some pushback, but we're trying to figure out what the best incentive structure is for them to work with us and make it kind of a win-win situation for us and the hotel concierge. Now with an Airbnb host, it's much easier because they don't even have that capability to really provide services to their guests. They're communicating over email today, over text, and they can't really do much more than that. And there's some guests that have put together a folio, kind of like what you'd have in a hotel room, where they've listed out kind of the neighborhood best things to do or the best 10 apps that they could potentially download. And we're saying instead of putting together that whole binder, if you want to call it, of fun things to do or restaurants to eat at, literally it's all in Bellhop now. So with Airbnb hosts, it's actually much easier to work with them.
Yeah. Do they expect money?
Always.
That's good. Any pushback from the organizations you're unbundling, David or Amy?
When we discussed this earlier, I was saying how we're kind of not really unbundling, we're bundling. We're in the corporate travel industry, for example, traditional black car services are used to having an exclusive deal with a company, and they'll charge $150 to get from SFO to downtown San Francisco, and they really like that scenario because obviously people like Lyft charge much less than $150, and they take all that as margin. So they're not particularly happy about being part of a marketplace like us that shows that their prices are grossly, inflated in many cases. So definitely there's been resistance. We have closed a lot of major deals, though, a lot of major TMC deals who are kind of in some cases forcing them to work with us bluntly. And in other cases, some of them realize they see the writing on the wall that they can continue, they can continue complaining about how things weren't the way they were 5 years ago, but as long as they keep on doing that, Lyft will keep on eating their lunch, and as will Uber, and as will everyone else, and they better get with the picture. And so in several cases, we've allied with certain car services in London, for example, who recognize that they have a niche service, and they are now submitting RFPs with us. But it completely depends on the car service. We've got guys who completely frozen us out, one who's threatened to sue us, and others who now are submitting RFPs with us. So it depends on it depends on when they kind of have their come to Jesus moment, frankly, about the fact that they're no longer going to have 100% of their ground transportation transactions. And once they have that moment, then they're usually pretty open to working with us. But yeah, we have to tread carefully around that until they do.
Yeah. Any comments, Amy?
I'll provide my quick 2 cents, which is I think what we've all very clearly seen is with innovation, as you're carving out a new type of business, even if it's something that's been around for a long time, but you're coming up with a new strategy around it, innovation will always typically get some type of pushback. And for us, we were essentially carving out a whole new transportation industry that didn't actually have pre-existing regulations around it or insurance clauses or anything of the sorts, right? And so we actually did get quite a bit of pushback initially from regulators, from cab companies, from a competitive perspective, from insurance carriers not wanting to cover Lyft drivers because they didn't really know whether it was personal, whether it was commercial, and therefore you get this really weird gray area in between. And so, through time and as the pie starts to grow and there become additional competitors in the space, you realize that the numbers show that it's here to stay. And that's when we really start to see the shift in mindset of people actually coming to the table and us continuing to be very proactive and reaching out, coming to the table with what we believe to be win-wins so that we can all really share a piece of the broader pie.
Okay. So we have another question which has been done on a mobile phone. An app to find the best way to the airport. I would say Rome to Rio. Would that work?
I'm sorry.
The question is, I spent 2 hours deciding that I was best off driving to San Francisco after my flight. Here was cancelled. Okay. How long before an app can find the best alternative for me? That's Rome to Rio, isn't it?
I'm not really following. I'm sorry.
The best app to get you away from the airport.
So the flight was cancelled. Need to find alternative route to get here to the conference. The best app for that. And
I think I would say it's us, but I'm slightly biased. So.
Rome to Rio has more varieties of transportation, but that could be.
I disagree with that. For Rome to Rio uses guys like us. So.
we use Mozio for the same thing.
Yeah. So.
Okay. We're partners with both.
Okay. Cool. And we have another question. Could you elaborate on your approach to user research? So when you're putting these things together.
Yeah, I can start. So we obviously have a very. I'd say the first insight for us was that a lot of our competitors are trying to solve a different problem. It's not the real problem. Meaning, I constantly speak to various car services or whatever out there that say we provide the best black car service, we provide the best fill in the blank, very specific service, and really they're trying to solve a problem for the person who's looking for the best black car service when most people are looking for how to get to and from the airport, how to get from the airport into the city center, and that's the problem they're trying to solve. And so I'd say the first bit of user research is this is one of the reasons why we've closed most of the OTAs, most of the hotel chains, and why is that these OTAs and the hotel chains or airlines are not looking for the best black car service. They're saying we have economy plus, business, and first class, and in 300 different locations around the world. I don't care if you have the best black car service in Brisbane, Australia. I need something across 300 geographies and 5 different price points. And I'd say that's one of the reasons why we've won a lot of these deals. Is we ruthlessly we ask them and figure out what does the airline or the OTA want. And so that's very basic customer research. I'd say one of the other things in terms of the actual experience, we are selling 6 to 7 different forms of transportation. We're selling 5 or 6 different ways to actually redeem the ticket: QR code, NFC, barcode, confirmation code, SMS, text message, etc. Things like meet and greet, advanced reservation versus on demand, and all those different use cases need to be accounted for. Even with it, we sell public transit tickets, and you've got public transit tickets you tap onto the subway for, ones you have QR codes for, ones that expire after 2 hours, for example. All these different, and there's people who are using public transit who already know they want to book it, so they want the fewest number of clicks possible to get to the ticket, and others who want to compare routes and et cetera. So we literally, at one point, I did a 66-page presentation of for our internal team for every single iteration for every single one of those things, advanced reservation, QR code, et cetera. And we've gone about it very methodically and figured out, and done a lot of user testing. We have a big design team that basically does all the mocks and kind of gets in front of users before we write any code. And we do a lot of thinking around kind of what is the fewest number of clicks possible for every single use case, because if you want to be our goal, which is the ultimate urban mobility solution, if you want to be good for everyone, you can't just only satisfy a couple of these use cases and then and then have a really long pathway to get to the other options. It needs to be optimal for every single one. So
that sounds hideously complicated.
It is.
I'll say one super quick thing. So we've been focused on consumer and doing a lot of user interviews in person, talking to them while they're in destination. So I've personally checked in, 100 Airbnb guests and talked to every single one as they walk in the door and have them download our app and figure out what they want when they're here from Germany. So that's just very direct. Hey, what are you doing here? How long are you here for? What services do you need? So just very authentic conversation and trying to figure out what their needs are, and then going back to our engineering team and building that out and building out the partnerships that we need to make that happen. So,
okay, 100 Airbnb guests. Where was that? How did you work that?
New York. Because we have relationships with. So the Airbnb community is interesting because there's a lot of ecosystem that has been developed around short-term rentals, and Airbnb is the biggest player in the short-term rental space. So there's a lot of management companies, and that's almost a whole nother conversation, but there's a lot of these companies that manage listings on behalf of Airbnb hosts. So if you're an Airbnb host and you don't, you're a consultant and you're traveling every week and you don't have the time to clean your apartment, hand off the key to that individual who's getting checked in, getting the key back from the person when they're checking out, that whole thing. There's a management company that handles that process for you as an Airbnb host. So we have relationships with these companies that are performing these management services, and they are our partners to then distribute our app to their guests. And so as a result of having those relationships, we have been able to, go through that check-in process with them to learn more about what those guests' needs are.
Okay. So we have a question about technology. Now, yesterday, Kiwi.com speaker Zdanek, I might get this wrong because I was chairing, but I think he said he had 340 API partnerships. Basically set up his system. Do you know what his system is? It's essentially linking up all the low-cost airlines together. He did that in 2 years. So the question is, but with that in mind, I thought that was incredibly amazing piece of business development. How is tech transforming the spaces we live in and the services we provide?
I'll jump in here, and then feel free to chime in. So I think, broadly speaking, technology has become so accessible and frankly quite cheap, considering what it used to be. And because of that, it's so easy now for companies across the globe to leverage each other's APIs to really connect into that technology and create some type of one-stop shop. So whether you're a hotel, you're an airline, you're a transit provider, there is the ability to go out to find all of these public APIs and essentially offer everything within your one core app. And this allows you to not only own more of your own user experience, so if you used to oversee 30% of the travel ribbon, suddenly now you're opening it up to 90. You control more of the touch points happening before, during your stay, in this case, Airbnb, and afterwards. And you can start driving additional revenue through some of these channels as well, because you have control of that user experience, and you're making it super simple to keep them in your app, one-stop shop, everything available, ready at their fingertips.
Yeah, I mean, so I think we see this, as Amy mentioned, right? For us, we're an API-driven company. We're talking to all these partners that haven't opened up their APIs yet, and we're saying we're a new, revenue stream for you, a new distribution channel that you're currently not looking at, and having that business development conversation with them, and trying to convince them that we are going to be good partners for them to work with them and drive them more revenue. So APIs is obvious. But we're also looking at other things like putting an Alexa device in hotel rooms or Airbnbs, and then as a guest you can actually talk to the thing and request. Let's say for example you want room service, right? Room service is really food delivery, and the guest doesn't care if they get their In-N-Out or Shake Shack. They don't know if it's going to be from Seamless, Grubhub, or Postmates, or DoorDash, or whatever. They just want Shake Shack or In-N-Out. So part of what we're doing is we're aggregating those food delivery services into one. So if you go and talk to the Alexa device, or if you do it within our app, it doesn't matter where it's coming from. You just know you're going to get it. So we have our own kind of distribution channel outside of our own app, being one channel, and voice is definitely a big frontier.
Okay. We're nearly at the end of the session. Does anyone have any questions from the audience? No? I have one more. We talked about APIs. Obviously, they're changing the industry hugely. What are the do's and don'ts What are the secrets to successfully open your APIs for great partnerships?
We use other people's APIs, so.
Like successfully opening our own API, you mean? What are the do's and don'ts?
Yeah.
I
Well, from your partnerships, what do you want when you use other people's APIs?
Yeah, I mean, giving ours away, we don't give it away to anyone because even if it's okay, well, two things. First of all, sometimes we encounter partners who they say it's going to be $100,000 because it takes for you to use our API because we need to set up everything in every city, and then there needs to be all this maintenance, and I always kind of roll my eyes. I was like, well, that's not my fault. You built a shitty API. That's your fault. Now you want to charge me $100,000 for it because you need to maintain it to just bring on one other partner. So that is like, that's happened numerous times, and that is like the fault of the people who constructed the API. That said, there are plenty of times where we've started charging a nominal fee because you'll get everyone and their mother to ask you for their API, and before you know it, you end up inundated with support requests from people who don't really know what they're doing, who will build something that will literally refer you one reservation over the next year, and you'll have wasted a ton of your time. So I'd say there's two things. One, if you're building an API, make sure it's forward compatible. I've gone into big companies and they've explained to me how they have services in 5 different cities and they all run on 5 different platforms. And so that, in order to get us access to each one, there's gonna be 5 different integrations. And I was like, why didn't you guys think about like how to make this all into one thing? That's kind of the point. But then on the other side, like if you're requesting those APIs, don't waste their time and like expect to be charged probably a small fee unless you can prove massive volume, and that's kind of why sometimes these guys are a little less accessible because they've had bad experiences, similar to the ones that we've had. So
Yeah. Amy?
So to speak to public APIs, because I want to make sure it's clear that there's private APIs, which then you can be very selective about who you're partnering with and how you're opening up that data sharing. But as it relates to public APIs, I think the point of public APIs is to make it super accessible and ultimately make it really easy to scale. And so when we think about how we build our APIs and when we look at other partners and how they've built their APIs, it really comes down to what kind of frictionless experience does it provide? Is there really solid documentation so that we don't have to reach out to the partner over and over to ask questions that could actually be addressed through the documentation itself and vice versa? Is it things like providing a very clear terms of service so that it's very clear as to the intention and how it would be used? Providing things like sandboxes to allow the partner to properly test your API, and again, vice versa. So I think there's a lot of like the small details that oftentimes get lost in the midst of releasing public sets of APIs. But if you take into account some of those, I think you're pretty solid.
Okay. I think we're out of time. I'm very sorry missing the last 3 questions, but we're out of time. Can you thank our guests?